Today's episode is brought to you by Viralcast, the first and only completely done-for-you podcast production service. Build new relationships, create a deeper connection with your database, and get exposure to new audiences. Here's how it works. You interview influencers in your market. You start building that new relationship. Then you take that valuable content and share it with your database. Your guest then shares the content with their list. Everybody wins. You get new relationships, you create a deeper connection with your list, and get exposure to new people that you would never have access to. And look, if you're currently mining your database with video, stop. Audio is the new reality. We are living in an influence economy. Exposure is the new social capital. Go to Viralcast with a K to learn more. And right now, for the first 25 subscribers, we're offering a 50% off the getting started price. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Hey everybody, what's up? How's it going? How's your week? How's your day? I hope you are having a great week, a great day. Hope it's better than mine. This has been a bear of a week. You know, you just have one of those weeks where everything goes against you, man. I'm having some client issues. I'm having some vendor issues, and the vendor is causing the client issues. So let's talk about today's episode. Now, today's episode, I bring the founder. I'll tell you what it is. I bring the founder of Playster on. Now, if you don't know what Playster is, go check it out. But I brought him on for a couple reasons. I wanted to get his take his temperature on the state of the industry and technology. Now, there's been for a long time a raging debate about will technology disintermediate realtors. Now, I will say that technology probably won't, but really it's going to be the realtors who have technology that will disintermediate those who don't. So we talk about, we get into a lot of stuff. We talk about, SEO, right? Is it dead? Is it not? We talk about best practices in terms of SEO. We talk about how to get noticed online. We talk about how to differentiate yourself, find your niche or niche, tomato, and then how to deliver massive value. We talk about the industry, right? What is it going to look like in 5 years? And how can you best sort of set yourself up to today to position yourself, 5 years from now. And maybe that's kind of a long-term outlook. And we talk about just the nuts and bolts, right? Databases and the difficulty of, what databases we should have. Certainly when we think of a database, we always think of our CRM, right? Where we put our customers, our prospects. But there's also a financial database, right? Your QuickBooks or whatever, right? You have to have those things. They have to talk. You have to know what your bottom line is, man. I don't care if you're selling 1,000 houses, but you need to be making money off that. And I think that's a big problem. Now, not to go on a rant, but that's a big problem in the industry, right? The people who get the awards, on stage are the people who are pumping units. But there may be somebody in the crowd, right, that's not putting up those kind of units, but maybe working 30 hours a week and making a crap ton more money. So whatever. All right. Listen, that's it. Real quick, if you haven't, I would love for you to go visit our site. Go to superagentslive.com. Get on my list. I share stuff with my list. I don't share with anywhere else. You can download my free ebook. Check it out. So do that. Join the conversation on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @superagentslive. Hashtag for the show is Unpack That Idea. I love meeting you guys on Twitter. I love interacting with you. Lastly, look, man, if you haven't checked out Viralcast, go do it. If you're thinking about radio, go check out Real Estate Radio Experts. Easiest way to get come list me leads. All right, that's it. Let's get to the show. Today on the show, guys, really excited about today's case. Now, as you guys know, we not only bring on top agents and authors and coaches, but we also bring on industry people for you guys, right? Because, technology is something that, as well as social media, a lot of you guys struggle with. I mean, you guys are not techies. You guys are salespeople and CEOs of your companies. Today's guest has a technology-focused company. He's based in Boston, 65 people, so they are on a tear. They're only 4.5 years old. They've raised venture capital, which is really interesting in a real estate market. I'm thrilled to welcome Matt Barba. Hey, Matt, thanks for taking the time out.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, if the audience doesn't know, you are the co-founder and CEO of a site called Playster.com. What Playster does, you guys set out in life to be a sort of a technology that's easy to use, all-encompassing. I think you guys launched it with basically website creation, but maybe take a minute, tell the audience a little bit about well, no, you know what? Let's do this, Matt. Tell the audience about you, and then we'll get into what Playster does and its birth.
That sounds great. So I grew up in DC, and then moved up to in one of the suburbs of DC. Moved up to Boston to go to college. Went to BU, and that was my first exposure to real estate. I was a freshman in college, and between summer of freshman year and sophomore year, I got my real estate license, and that was my kind of first exposure, which is really interesting to do it in college. But I was admittedly a little hooked by the money, and kind of excited about getting a job, and a couple buddies were doing it, and I got hooked doing it. And then, did school. I was a mediocre agent, I would say, not a great agent, but loved technology, loved to code. And about a year and a half after school, after graduating BU, started Playster with my co-founder, Frederick Towns. So, not a, I've heard a lot of stories of folks who are saying, hey, they were super successful agents, or right. They were broker owners or CEOs, and then they started their tech company. And I kind of had a different path, to starting Playster. But that's how I got here. I had some experience. I felt a problem, on my first day, and then wrote some software to try to help me with that. And
yeah, well, no, I mean, I think that's the best way to start a company, right? I mean, to scratch your own itch. What did you study at BU?
I got, strangely enough, I got my degree in finance. So a lot of people kind of assume that I studied engineering, and I had coded for a long time since I was in middle school. Did freelance work and just to kind of have pocket money and but loved engineering, and but just decided to study finance in BU.
Were you thinking you were going to go to Wall Street?
It's a great question. My story at BU was I really wanted to study math and physics. That was my thing. Like, I just really wanted to get into a hard science, and got to college and just realized that I just hated it. That I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong, and I thought it was going to be great, and it wasn't, and I needed to switch. And so I just jumped into the business school, and finance. I think it made sense to me just because of the math component.
Right.
But I always thought something in computer science. I just couldn't stop coding. I loved being an engineer.
So, well, okay, but now you developed Playster, or code development. I know founders and co-founders are always funky about that, but so I'll be careful about saying co-founder.
Right.
So, I mean, you said you felt a problem from the beginning when you started selling real estate. What was that problem that you felt, and then obviously saw it throughout your market or the world?
Yeah, so I started in I guess it would be sort of the later in 2006 is kind of when I got my license. Okay. And the problem that I felt, and there was certainly a lot of tech out in 2006. So by no means, do I feel like I'm unique in seeing this problem. But the problem that I saw was that we as an industry didn't have great software. And when I say great, I specifically mean software that was really connected to our data. It always felt like, when I was updating our website, or when I was posting on Craigslist, or when I was doing SEM ads, when I was doing anything, there was always out of date data, and my clients and my customers would always complain to me about how out of date everything was, and they thought I was trying to trick them, and that I was trying to provide not as good service as they would get somewhere else. And it was always surprising to me because as an agent, you only get to eat, you only get paid when you close a deal, when you do a great job, and to have consumers think that you somehow didn't want to do a great job for them, didn't want to get the deal done, didn't want to help them find a place to buy or rent or sell, was just kind of strange to me. So I dug into that problem and realized it's a very serious problem that agents and brokers have no control over, right? We have no control over how our data is made available to us.
Now,
or at least back then we did.
Sure, but hold on. I mean, there's two problems you just mentioned, and software connected to our data, right? And even still today in 2015, I'll tell you. I mean, this is I don't want to derail you, Matt, but if you think about a CRM, right? Let's say Salesforce, for example, right? That's an old foundational CRM. So you have and this is specifically directed at what you're saying. CRM, I'm going to manage my contacts. And I can manage my sales pipeline. The problem is, and this is a problem that I have in my business, and I manage my pipeline, closed one, right, lost, whatever. But then once I win it, then all of a sudden I have to now manage that revenue in QuickBooks. Right?
Right.
I mean, it's amazing to me that there's not something that a little bit more connected. But so that was one problem you felt, right? Software, your data wasn't connected by software. One, two, you said the data back in 2006 was old. What specifically? What are you talking about? Just so people understand what you mean by that data.
Yeah, so for me, when I was an agent, it was always listing data. It was always, there have been some updates, there have been some changes, maybe new photos, maybe the home had gone off the market, price change, whatever that was. And it was always behind. And, to be honest, folks still experience that all day long.
Yeah.
It's one of the top complaints that I see. I don't know if you're a big follower in the Facebook groups, but it's a thing that we see all the time, data out of date, angry clients saying, hey, I want to see that home. Why can't I see it? So that was for me the foundational problem. And I got really hooked into why is that? Why do we face that as an industry? And of course it's a very complicated problem that doesn't have a simple answer. But I was just very fascinated with that. Why don't, we're the largest industry in the U.S. by far.
20% of United States GDP. Real estate.
By far. We're nearly twice as large as healthcare. I think I'm right about. I might be a little off on that.
Sure.
Nearly twice as large as healthcare. Why don't we have great software? Always baffles me.
Why hasn't this industry as a whole evolved more than it has? I mean,
Right.
From 1970 to now, what's really happened? Listings are online.
Right.
So anyhow, sorry again.
That was the thing that got me really hooked, and that was the driving factor behind starting Playster, and it was. It was really a learning experience because I feel the trickiest thing about going from agent to doing a software company or to participating in a larger conversation nationally is that every market is so different. And so for me, I experienced real estate through Boston, and Boston is its own beast, but Manhattan is different, DC is different, even the suburbs of Boston are very different. So it was a learning process for us building this, national scale software company for real estate.
Well, it's funny, man. Is you look at Manhattan, they don't even have an MLS.
Right.
Is that crazy? That's crazy. Okay, but hold on.
Exactly.
So okay, you see this problem. You see it's big. It's complex. I'm on your site right now, and everybody, if you're driving, whatever, go to Playster, just like it is. Go to that place and then stir. So the first thing I see here, Matt, is real estate websites, amazing functionality, just $10 a month, no long-term contracts.
Yeah.
So is this the core product that you have? Is that I can easily and quickly you're the Squarespace for real estate?
That's exactly right, and that's our core offering today, and that's where we started as a company. We kind of have three big values internally, right? We say we want our technology to be really, really simple, way simpler than anything else out there. We want it to be an all-in-one solution, and we want it to be affordable. And we want it to be affordable because we think you shouldn't spend an enormous amount of money on software. You should spend an enormous amount of money on promoting yourself in whatever way, shape, or form you do that.
Right.
That's where your money should go. And so you're absolutely right. We started with this core offering of websites, and we asked ourselves the question, why does it cost $10,000 to have a great website? What's the driving factor in there? And we figured out that it's that connection to the MLS. It's one of the big drivers around getting a great, responsive, fully featured website. If you want to connect it to the MLS, you're going to have to pay to have that done. And so we set off on this 3-year journey to form, partnerships with 95% of the MLSs in the U.S., which was, it seemed like a way easier thing to do when we started. About 4.5 years ago. But we just wanted to streamline the entire process so that if you were an agent or a broker and you wanted to just set up a website, maybe it's not your primary website, maybe it's a hyperlocal, whatever the reason was, that you could just find a place, you could find 10 minutes on a Saturday, go to Playster, sign up, and have a website out on the web.
So no, that's great. And look, and here's I'll tell you that this is a piece of advice that I give, and agents don't know how to deal with this. But I say, hey, you should fundamentally have 4 websites. You should have one website that is very, very seller focused, a buyer focused one, right? Mm-hmm. You should have your general capture one, right? You just take, Matt Barba, realtor at large, and then a home value site, right?
Yeah.
So Matt, right now today, I go hire a developer for $1,500. I'm going to have him build me a website. But I still have to pay $39 for the IDX feed. Now, for this $10 a month, do I get an IDX feed, or are these add-ons?
It's a great question. It's included in the price. Your IDX costs, everything is included in the price. In all but, I might be off on this, but we have it on our site. It's in all but 50 MLSs, something like that.
Wow.
So everything's baked in, and that's our goal, is to work with, our partners, the MLSs, and really the entire industry to, get it to a place where it can all be baked into the fees, so that you're not, again, it's that kind of all-in-one affordable mission statement.
I mean, with realtors, with everybody everything is a SaaS product these days, right? It's,
sure.
You're paying a monthly, and it's like death by subscription, right? Oh, it's $30 for this, $50 for that, and all of a sudden, you can't buy anything, right? Like in the olden days, you just buy a shrink wrap product, you have the CD, and you throw it on, anyhow.
Sure.
So look, so I there's so many ways I could take this conversation, right? I could ask you about how you feel about Zillow. We might touch on that a little bit. But for me, this is like a kind of a self-interested question. Again, real estate as an industry has not evolved.
Sure.
When and how do we get to a point where I can do, look, travel agents, right? Technology disintermediated travel agents, right? Before I went, I had to give the travel agent, she made the bookings. Now I do it all online. When is it possible to have a completely online solution for the millennials out there, right? I don't want to talk with anybody. I just want to go to mattbarber.com and tell them to list my, you know what I mean? Like, is that possible? Will we ever get there? Or is that just crazy of me?
I don't think, I don't know if it's ever possible. I think, it perhaps is theoretically possible, but to be honest, I don't think we'll ever get there. And I don't know if I want to be in a world where we do. And what I mean by that is, I think the most important question in technology today, if you're building software for real estate, you have to have a mindset, which is, will there be agents at the center of the home buying and home selling process in 50 years, or will there not be? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's the most important question today. And Playster's just this massive believer that you will never replace the human factor in buying or selling your home. I think there's a ton of reasons. I think that the job of an agent will evolve. as software evolves and as the internet kind of continues to, get into our industry. But I think the agent, the human factor is never going away. It's just too big a transaction. There's so many factors associated with making that decision. You're always going to want a human touch. Or at least I do, and that's where the data is trending.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, look, if ever, it's the most expensive thing anybody's ever going to buy or sell. So,
Sure.
People are like, I agree. I think people are going to want a little hand holding. So let's say 50 years from now, right, that human touch is still needed. It's still wanted. How, look, you spend a lot of time thinking about the future of real estate. What do you think it's going to look like in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How can people listening to you right now, Matt, best prepare themselves or get out on the cutting edge of where this industry is going to go?
I think the best advice, so I try to learn about this, because we only bring one side of, we bring our perspective as technologists to the table, but I try to learn as much from our customers as humanly possible on this topic, because it's really a partnership between us and them. And what I hear from our customers today about what's going to happen, and how agents and brokers are going to create value in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, is so here's the sort of advice that seems to be bubbled out. So one is don't panic. Like, everyone kind of feels like the ground is shifting really, really rapidly under their feet, and that somehow there's going to be this brand new paradigm for how value is created in the industry in 5 years. And what we're seeing is that that's not true. That really simple strategies that worked 5 years ago or today are going to continue to work in 5 years. So the biggest one we see is differentiating yourself and finding your niche as an agent, right? Yep. Or as a broker. Like, if you're going to do luxury, like, it's like the classic, find your 500 homes, or, find your geo, or find your, whatever that is, that's going to still work today, tomorrow, in 5 years, and in 50 years. I think the thing to think about in this topic is, how do we take that and turn it from the physical manifestation, which, you guys do every single day, and how do we put that onto the web? So, using your example of websites where you said, hey, have a buyer, have a seller, have a home valuation, and then, maybe have a hyperlocal, we take the same approach, which is have sites or have marketing materials that are digital, that are focused on personifying who you are, why you're special, and what your niche is. And so, that's how we think things are going to continue to evolve. And I realize that's abstract and it's very, very high level, but we think that that is going to be the way that agents and brokers are never replaced. They're just going to continue to double down on what they're good at, where they're adding value. And then as new technologies are evolved, that's just going to be another tool in their tool belt as they continue to double down in this direction.
Okay, no, that's great. I hear you. Yeah. I agree. It makes sense. I think that I'm in your camp. Let's talk about actual website stuff, right? So you can have all those sites, right? I can have my hyperlocal waterfront site, and I can have my, whatever. I can have all those things, right? I can do it for $10 a month on Playster. But if nobody knows that they're there, right, that doesn't do me any good. So this is an SEO question. I'm sure you felt where this is going. Now, Google, Penguin updates are doing all these updates. There, 2 years ago, people that were killing it because they knew how to do SEO, like all of a sudden they were doing $20 million in revenue, and then boom, had nothing.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on SEO, and maybe what are some best practices that people can use for their site, whether they're using a Playster site or not?
Right. So I think, very high level thoughts on SEO. We think it's still a core tool in your tool belt, even if you're an agent or a broker, right? We don't think it's, some folks are talking about, hey, SEO is over. It's time to double down on paid. It's time to double down on displayed or Facebook. We think that SEO is kind of here to stay. And the reason we think that, broadly speaking, is because despite all the shifts, Google has decided, and they can change their mind at any time, but today Google has decided that local is going to win, which is a huge, huge plus for real estate, right? Yep. For agents and brokers. Yep. Local is going to win. So that's kind of high-level thoughts. When we're talking about specific best practices, kind of what we tell folks is there's two buckets that you need to think about. The first bucket is get the tech and get the basics right. So what do I mean by that? And this is really your foundation. It's, make sure that you have control over your URLs, or if you don't have control over them, this is when you're selecting your website product or however you're going to get your voice out there. Make sure you have control over your URLs, or at least that your URLs are formatted and structured properly. And that's kind of a big topic that we can go deeper on, but it's making sure they're structured properly. Got to have that sitemap. If you can get the sitemap, to have, obviously all your content, but all your IDX, all your MLS data in there, even better. I think that's the kind of icing on the cake if you can get that. And this is assuming we're creating a buyer-focused site. I think the third big thing is, making sure all your IDX content is spiderable, is indexable. Really, really critical. And there's a difference, right, between that and making sure that you have a fully compliant IDX level sitemap. So, just kind of, again, we can go deeper there, but it's making sure that that foundation it is solid. You're doing all the basics right. And then the second bucket of things is when it comes to content creation, what we tell everyone is set a plan that's realistic for content creation. Whatever your available resources are, whether that's 5 minutes a week or you have full-time writers at your disposal, set a plan and stick to it. And then you just kind of sit there and you wait and assess. Right. So what I mean by that is, do your content, write your pieces, see what happens on Google, make modifications to your topics and categories, double down on the things that worked, don't focus on the things that didn't. And generally speaking, when you kind of get both of those buckets right and you use that playbook, we see folks make progress. There are certainly scenarios where you're going up against very, very intense competition that has professional help, and there's different strategies you have to use there. But broadly speaking, that's how we're seeing our customers be successful with SEO today.
So let's and in terms of content, we can talk about content and long tail and all that stuff. So you have your URL structured properly. What does that mean, Matt?
So I think that, and obviously kind of Google updates their guidance on it pretty continuously. But what we see is, you're wanting your keyword, whatever that is, and we can talk about keyword research and kind of how to dig into that. But whatever that keyword is, whatever the thing you're trying to rank for, making sure that has prominent placement in your URLs, that you're respecting, the structure of the data itself. So what I mean by that is, let's say we're creating some content for neighborhood pages, making sure to tell Google through that URL, hey, this is a neighborhood, right? Like, so it's, maybe .com/neighborhood/ the name of the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like there's, I think the biggest thing, if there was one takeaway, it's just making sure that keyword is present in the URL. So that, and, making sure you have control over that. So what we're not looking for is, numbers, right? Like, just, hey, it's like a, .com/page 123. That's something to avoid. We want .com/ Back Bay, Boston, Massachusetts. That's a great URL if that's a term we're going after. So that's what I mean when I say get your URLs formatted correctly. And it's less about, again, kind of talking about that bucket. It's less about the specific structure of the URL and more to the point that you have control over it. That's the thing that we really tell folks to look for. That you can change it, you can update it. It's not static. It's not out of your control.
Okay, so just so I'm clear and the audience is clear. So most people have a blog on their site.
Yep.
So I'm going to have tobysalgado.com/blog, and then one of my blog posts is that Back Bay Boston whatever.
Exactly.
So if I did that, then that would be structured. I would be in line with what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's really like, what we try to do is give guideposts for how people should think about SEO. I mean, what we've learned is, there's no single strategy for success. I wish there was, right? Because then we would just tell everyone, we would just write a bunch of content in our academy. We just tell everyone do this and they'd always be successful. What we found is when you're building technology for the entire country, you've got to create optionality. And so the big thing we tell people when they're thinking about SEO and specifically they're thinking about URLs is make sure you have control. right? You can change the listing URLs. You can change the neighborhood URLs. You can change, obviously, your blog URLs, things like that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it makes sense to me, and I'm sure that most people listening are following along, and they're going, yeah, that makes sense. I think the problem is that people are going, I don't know how to do that. Right? Like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I mean,
Sure.
you know, and even if, you know, you can go, even if you want to go, oh man, I'm going to learn SEO. I'm going to go to, you know, Moz.com or SEO Moz, you know that guy.
Yep.
You know, they get, and then they read a couple things. They're like, you know, I'm more confused than I was when I got here. So, now, do you guys put out, I'm looking on your site, you have Playster, you have an academy. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
You have ebooks, you have infographics. What is this stuff? Is this, I mean, do you teach, is there a place where people can go to Playster and learn about some of this stuff from you guys, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of like one of the cores of our business is education. So you're spot on, Playster.com/academy. It's also in the main navigation. And it's about 800 pieces of content today. We do about 5 to 7 new pieces of content each week. And it's tips and tricks where our marketing team, you know, does the kind of hard research, interviews our customers, figures out what's working, and then we publish it freely to everyone. And it's super well received. It's not just available to our customers; it's available to everyone. And it's, you know, kind of part of our thesis of giving back and saying, hey, if you want to learn about SEO specifically for real estate, great. You can go to the academy, search SEO, and you can pull up 10, 20, 30 articles to help you kind of begin that process of, you know, how to think about those topics. And I think the last thing I'll say on it is, you know, a lot of the content is very actionable. So what we've tried to stay away from is duplicating. You mentioned Moz, you know, they're great. We're trying to stay away from the kind of theory of, in this case, SEO, of how to do SEO. And we're trying to get down into the practicals. Like, hey, here's just, if you don't know what you want to do and you're just looking for a generic guide, just do this, right? Like, we're trying to be those people.
Right.
If you want to learn the theory, you know, Moz is going to do way better than Playster
right.
at SEO.
I think that's what people need, man. They need that step 1, step 2, step 3. So, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, look, why don't you have the hardest hitting, like, podcast on in your academy? This show right here.
That's a good point. You know, that's, you know, it's a great point.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, I won't charge you for it, but, you know, people that get to your site, you know, and again, I think people, whatever. Okay, so keyword research. You said we could talk about that a little bit. You know, keyword research is key for knowing, you know, some of the things that if you're smart, right? I have a Toby Salgado Real Estate, whatever, in San Diego, right? I mean, if I'm a smart marketer, I'm going to get on the keyword planning tool at Google and figure out what words I should use. You know, whether that's just on my site, creating content, or buying ads. How does, you know, give us some guidelines around how people should think about keyword research and then how they go about doing it?
So I think the first thing is, it's the thing we always kind of preface everything when folks start talking about traffic generation. We say, particularly around, and assuming we're kind of still talking around SEO, if you really want to go deep on SEO and you really want to make this kind of a cornerstone of your kind of quote unquote digital business, just going eyes wide open around the time commitment, right? I think that's some of the things we've seen catch folks off guard, you know, getting in and kind of learning about SEO. And I mean, it's a big, complicated topic. And that's why there are folks out there that get paid the big bucks to do it for you and to kind of figure it out. So that's kind of the first thing we always say is just go in eyes wide open around the time commitment there. But that kind of, you know, that aside, you know, that what was I
was saying where, you know, what are some best use case keyword research.
Right, exactly. So I would say, you know, the thing we always tell folks is double down on your niche, right? So I think it always begins there, right? So if you're the girl or the guy that sells, you know, luxury condos downtown, begin there. And, you know, the thing we kind of look at is it's when it comes to keywords and you know, sort of a different equation for SEO versus, you know, SEM. But generally speaking, you want a mix. You want to put your time from an SEO perspective, or your dollars in terms of a PPC perspective. You want to put your time or dollars to work in a mix of keywords. Some are going to give you fast results, and some are going to be things that you work on or build up over time. So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you go into Google's keyword research tool and you see, that it's that there's let's say you type in, downtown luxury condos. That's the thing you're focusing on. And you see that a handful of the keywords generated are super competitive, and Google will just tell you that they're very competitive. And there's a handful that are moderately competitive and a handful that are, straightforward. We always recommend to folks, pick a few from each category and focus on those. And when I say focus, what I mean is focus your content creation around those specific sets of keywords, right? So maybe it's, newly listed luxury condos downtown, right? Yeah. Maybe that's a really hard keyword. So maybe you're going to focus content generation there. So we would say start with a mix. If you don't know what to do, if you know what to do, it's different. But if you don't know what to do, start with a mix, see what works, right? Write a couple articles or spend some money on PPC, see what's driving traffic to your site, and then double down on the things that are working. And we always recommend to folks, get one or two keywords to work.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it's key that you don't try to go too broad, and you don't try to do 20 at once or 30 at once. Get one or two to work and see that ROI, see that investment from your time spent on those particular keywords, whether it's SEO or PPC.
Yeah.
So again, broad advice, but that's generally what we're seeing.
No, that's good. So you focus on one thing. And by the way, you said there's SEM, which is search engine marketing, and SEO, search engine optimization. Just you said that earlier, and I don't know if everybody knows those terms. So I'm going to find out what works and double down on it. Now, with your site, if I buy one of your sites, do you have? Does it come with Google Analytics so I can see where traffic is coming from?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Google Analytics is you of course have to create your own profile in Google Analytics, which we have a guide if you don't know how to do that. But once you create that profile, you just insert, you just do the integration with Google Analytics, and it'll show you literally everything. So when we were talking before about, what's working and what's not from either a content creation perspective for SEO or a dollar spent perspective with PPC, Google Analytics will tell you, exactly what's going on. Yeah.
So look, Matt, you're obviously a bright guy. How old are you, Matt? You're young, right?
I'm 28. Yeah.
Jeez. Oh my God. And you raised $23 million.
Yeah.
Oh, how does that feel? Are you married?
No, I'm not. No, I've got a girlfriend.
Okay.
It's a little bit like dating for 4 years. So.
Well, pull the trigger, man. Put a ring on that thing. Hey, but do you feel like you've made it, or do you wake up every day and do you feel like the luckiest guy in the world? Do you feel stressed out? Because look, here's the thing. Raising money, you did it. I've done it. You're not a big piece in somebody's portfolio. Okay. Sure. So, success for a VC is binary. They're going to push you to be $1 billion or a burnout. Does that concern you?
It doesn't.
Okay.
So you asked, so I'll kind of answer a few of the questions you asked, because I think you're asking them, you're asking the exact right questions, because you know what it's like to raise money.
Yeah.
So, I guess, to the first question, I don't feel like the luckiest person in the world. I feel like we're just beginning. There is, I look at what we built today and I feel like it's amazing. Like it's a great step forward from kind of what exists out there. But I feel like we have so much more work to do. And there's just so much more coming. And then, from the perspective of, do I kind of fear the VCs? Do I fear this kind of, this go for the stars or kind of die trying mentality? Yeah. The reason I don't is because, we've been overwhelmingly fortunate, because of our customers, that we've, had the choice of who we wanted to work with. And, we just got, we were lucky enough to be able to spend a lot of time getting to know these folks that we raised money from, and made sure that they deeply believe in our vision, and that there's very, very tight alignment around this change that we hope to be a part of in the industry, And they buy into that too, and they believe in that as well. And they don't just look at this as like, oh, everybody's making money in real estate software these days. Let's just jump on the back of a company that's doing that and try to figure that out as fast as possible. We're in this for the long haul.
No, that's great, man. That's good. Them being a partner with you is so that's great. That's perfect. Okay, so what else? And dude, I have a ton of questions. We're 34 minutes in. That's great. So we're about halfway done with this. Okay. What, Matt, should people, if somebody everybody might need either a rebuild of their site, right, a rebranding or a launch.
Sure.
How should people think about any of those things? I mean, I don't know if you can give some best industry practices for starting off or rebranding yourself.
Yeah. So I would say, on the rebranding, so we don't do a lot of branding work. Or I should say we don't do any branding work. We've got exposure to folks who are in the midst of doing rebranding, and I'll kind of throw out what we've learned and what we've experienced.
Okay.
So I would say, the website and the rebrand, I view them as totally separate projects. And I feel like you've got to get the rebrand right. And you've got to kind of take the time to do that before you're sitting down and pulling the trigger on some expensive technology. Because I've just seen, some really, really bad situations where, the rebrand takes 2 months or 3 months or, multiple quarters, and you're kind of footing the bill for some really, really expensive tech, whether that's website or, everything else surrounding your website. So that's the kind of one thing that we see out there. The second thing that I've seen, which is really interesting, and we've had customers do this with our tech, is don't be afraid to experiment. So what I've seen is folks get locked into this perfect being the enemy of the good scenario, where they're trying to find the perfect, branding and messaging and color scheme and just kind of getting it right. And they kind of forget the fact that, the web is this beautiful, wide open place where you can spin up a couple sites, do some marketing, see what resonates with folks, and get some data and make some decisions. So we always recommend when folks can do that, give it a shot, right? Try to find some way to experiment. So that's on the branding side. On the website side, I would say just make sure you're picking the tool for the job. And so what I mean by that is, make sure that you're, if you kind of wake up every morning thinking, man, I need to spend, $10,000 or $5,000 on a custom site and have somebody build it for me, just make sure that you understand why you're really doing that. And do you really need something custom, and what's really specific? What specific thing are you thinking you need that has to be custom built for you to be really successful, and why? And then do your research, right? There are a ton of folks out there who have been thinking about this problem for a long time, and they might have what you're looking for. So I mean, that's kind of our one piece of advice on the website side. Really think about the role you want your website to play in your business. Are you thinking this is the primary lead generation source for me? Is this a branding place, where people are going to learn about me and learn about what makes me special? What am I trying to accomplish with this thing? Yeah. It'll create a lot of focus. And it'll save you a lot of money, and it will, it'll create a lot of certainty around the project for you.
Right. So, I mean, look, we are in a world of, when the web started, right, we were in Web 1.0, then we migrated to Web 2.0, and now we're kind of in a world of what 2.5. The big thing is, the big difference, people don't know the difference between 1 and 2, is it's about communication and community, right? Because that's where this world is going. That's why Facebook is, because it's all about community. In terms of building community, fostering community, whether that's in a neighborhood or a city or whatever, what are your thoughts on that? And how does your tool, or how do you, what advice do you give people around that?
Yeah, so we think the name of the game in social is engagement and participation. Those are kind of the high-level philosophies that you need to bring to the table as a real estate professional if you really want to use social to its fullest extent. So what I mean by that is, so get the foundation right. And what I mean by that is, get social integrated with your website so that you can share all the blog posts, so that folks can use your website as a launch point to finding you on social. Do that, get your Facebook page set up, get all your accounts created, make sure up-to-date contact info. I mean, all that is kind of the 101 basic stuff. But where we see folks being really, really successful is participation and engagement. So what I mean by that is, get on Facebook and share things. Get on Instagram and share things. When people comment, respond.
Yeah.
And don't just respond like a robot or like you're thinking of yourselves purely as a business, but respond as if they were your friend and try to begin to have a conversation around a topic that you're trying to create some visibility in. So whether that's a community issue or, something that's going on in the area or maybe a new listing or, and it doesn't always have to be real estate focused, of course. But I think, what we're seeing is participation and engagement are like the name of the game to being successful on social. And then all the fun bits come from that, right? Like then you can do Facebook ads to folks who have engaged with you. You can drive those folks back to your website. You can do the sort of tier 3 more advanced items. But it's all kind of about being a human being on social.
Yep. No. So I agree. So hold on. So you touched on something really, really important, right? So you want to be social, you want to be relevant, you want to get engagement, build community, and then hopefully you're doing something where people get on your website. Now, Google has, I haven't used this, but I'm gonna. And I've been saying that for like 2 months. But so I can there's a free plugin if I have a WordPress site where I can grab your cookies. You hit my site, I grab your cookies, and now I can retarget you, as you're on Pinterest, or you're on, whatever. So, I would say that's sort of, that's more of an advanced thing. It's not that hard to implement, but it's an advanced. I mean, do you help? Are you helping your customers with those more advanced type things?
We do. So we as a company believe in building products and not necessarily providing services. And so one of the products that we've, started building is, making it really, really simple for folks to do some of those advertising activities, like retargeting, like you just mentioned. And so it's one of the things that you can buy as an add-on to your website. It's kind of a more advanced subscription. And you decide what kind of advertising you want to do, where you want it to be focused, how much you want to spend, and then, hit go. And it creates all the ads and creates all the landing pages and does the hard work for you. But I would say that, beyond kind of what Playster does, I couldn't agree more. Like, I think that if you're doing the participation and you're having the conversations on social, you really need to sort of sit down and think about how do you build that layer on top of it, do that advertising on top of it so that you can bring people back to the site. It doesn't have to be advertising. It can be, it can be earned media. Like you can, drive a conversation from Facebook into your website. Through sharing some really helpful content. But I think that everybody who's doing a great job of engaging folks on social has to start looking into, retargeting both on Google and on Facebook. It's super simple. It's like built into our base product that you can just drop in the retargeting pixels. It's really simple. I think every website product out there does it. And the ads, to kind of make one more point, the ads convert at this incredibly high rate. So like we're seeing average conversion across the entire network of sites, you're generally looking at, 3 to 5%, which is, mediocre, right? Like, but we're seeing traffic from Google and Facebook. These are retargeted Google and retargeted Facebook ads. You're getting these crazy conversion rates, 25, 30%, sometimes higher, which is just a really, like, if you're thinking about taking that first step into digital advertising, it's a very safe space because what you're not going to do is blow through this huge budget and get very few results. They're only showing people ads who you've had some level of engagement with before.
Yep.
So
it's way better. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's good to know. I mean, I think everybody right now is calling their developer, going, "Hey, I got to get this." So you built today, Matt. You said a minute ago. You said, we build products, not services. And I keep asking you about services, so I apologize about it. I mean,
no worries.
Are you going to get into that game at some point? It's a lateral move that seems to me to make sense. It may not make sense with your model, but I mean, but are you going to get into services, or it's all going to be just product and education?
The way that we're thinking today is, and it's a little bit of a blurry line, but the way we think today is, core, we're going to build software, and it's going to be, all in one. It's going to be affordable. It's going to be simple. That's our kind of mantra that we repeat over and over and over again. We'll always do education. What we're trying to build up now, and this is the kind of thing that I was talking about in Blurry Line, is what we've realized is that our customers, particularly our more advanced customers, need great support. They need a human touch, right? Just like we were talking about, buyers and sellers are always going to need a human touch. What we found today is that when you can get a human involved on the support side who can help you, figure out how to use the tool to get the thing done that you want to use it for, that makes all the difference in an agent or a broker's business, right? When they can be driving down the road and say, hey, Courtney, or hey, Darren, or hey, my account manager, Placer, can you turn on this drip marketing campaign for me? Or can you update that blog post for me? Because, that house actually has just been sold, or, like that little touch is something that we do today. And it makes this massive, massive difference, because in the real estate professional, the agent or broker isn't faced with this like cold, hard tool, you know what I mean, that they have to log into and figure out. So it's a line we're experimenting with. To answer the question directly, I would say we won't get in the game of building custom websites or, writing blog posts for people. But we want to be really supportive. We want people to use our software and to love it.
Well, I think if you're building sites and I have a subscription, it's to me, I'm sure you know who Chris Smith of Curator is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what Chris does, it seems like you could take over, do what Chris does relatively easy. There's no magic there. Well, look, let's talk about your customers for a second, because as we all know, right? This is per NAR, it's some crazy number, Matt. Like something like 90% of agents that get in the business today will not be here in 12 months. What does your customer look like? And are you seeing that kind of over 50% of turn?
It's a great question. We see the stats, obviously, that NAR pushes out. We don't see that level of churn, in our customer base. To be honest, quite the contrary. It's like this incredibly low monthly churn rate, and we haven't done a great job of, and this is sort of on us, of studying the precise person who's perfect for our tool, because what we found is that it's kind of this platform that people do a lot with. And so I talk to customers who are, broker owners, and they've got, 100 sites or 200 sites, and they're targeting mass geographies with very hyper local presences. I talk to people who've got their license for 3 months or for 2 months, and they're brand new to the game. And, they just kind of grew up with the web and feel like, hey, I've got to have a website. I've got to have a presence. And so what we're seeing is that this ability to just create a presence online and to start marketing it, it's really becoming the road. It's becoming Main Street, and it's not a particular product. Like, we don't scratch one itch. There's tons of people scratching tons of different itches that just make sense for their business. So, we see top producers, we see, folks who are doing this, for lifestyle purposes. You know what I mean? Like, it's all over the map.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's been fun learning about all those people's businesses, because they're slightly different.
Yeah. So for me, right, because we have, as I told you pre-recording, we have customers, we have listeners in 130 countries. Now, I will often get an email and say, "Hey, Toby, do you know a good agent in Denmark?" So after getting 10 or 15 of these, I realized, man, I could put together a global referral network. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it. It's, I can build it relatively cheaply. With your customer base, do you cross-populate, opportunities like that, or that's just not you?
We don't do it today. And I don't, it's hard to guess in the future, but my guess is that we will never. And the reason is because we think of ourselves, kind of as Switzerland, right? We want to be totally neutral in the entire industry. And we want to be that unbiased, unaffiliated partner who just says, here's great software. We don't sell you leads. We're not building our own portal. You know what I mean? We're not We're not involved anywhere else other than making great software. And you know how we make money because you pay us a subscription every month and there's nothing else going on elsewhere. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes so. I mean, it's so that notion is so different from, what you see everywhere else, right? If you go, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's many coaching companies that I'm going to coach you, then I'm going to sell you this, I'm going to sell you this, I'm going to sell you that. So it's good. It's refreshing, I think, for you to say, hey, listen, we're leading with our chin. This is what we do. And so just for me, this is totally something I want to know. Where do you acquire customers and where do you acquire customers and what do you think, your average customer acquisition cost is? And then if you want to talk about LTV, I'd be interested.
Yeah. So we, today we get customers from two main sources. We're super transparent about this. So the first is the Academy, that education center that we were talking about before. We get an enormous, about 150,000 uniques today that come to the Academy just to learn. And it's mostly social, it's mostly SEO driving behind the scenes, but it's, folks are Googling, like, how do I do real estate SEO? And then they land on, a very focused Academy article that says, do X, Y, and Z. And then here's a link to the more philosophical stuff if you want to learn about that. That's where a lot of our customers come from. They're building relationships with us, over the course of months or, years. And then they say, hey, I need a website, or hey, I need lead management, or hey, I need this thing. And they kind of look to us for that. So that's kind of way one. And then way two is we've built really, really powerful, partnerships in the industry. So the most notable one is late last year we did this, strategic partnership with NAR, to join their preferred partner network. And it's been huge. We're a big part of the .realtor launch, and they've been wonderful partners. And we give a pretty hefty discount to realtors out there. So we give a 50% discount if you're a realtor. So it's $5 a month, which includes all the IDX costs and all that fun stuff. So it's that's the primary way that folks are learning about us now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, man. We got to start wrapping up.
Okay.
So look, you're a young guy, man. Who in your, who's been a mentor to you, Matt?
That's a great question. So I'll give, there's kind of two answers. So one is, I've been super fortunate to have, really great parents, and I, very much look up to my father. He's been a great sort of mentor in business and in life. And then, second is, he's now on my board, interestingly enough.
Wow. That is interesting.
This guy, Dave Anderson, who's one of our big investors, and, he's the guy on our board, and he's just been a big mentor for me. I ambushed him junior year of college. He was giving a speech at Boston University, and I just said, hey, I love startups and I've got this idea. And it took about a year for him to pay attention, but he's been a great mentor. So, those are the two people who work with me every day. And I prefer that kind of hands-on, approach to life rather than, the up in the clouds, kind of big titans. Maybe I'll get there one day, but, we're focused on here and now today.
So I always ask for a book recommendation. So here's the setup. And I don't know if you read, I mean, you're 28, maybe you just listen to books, but if you have time, but the setup is I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy today?
Ooh, that's a good one. So that's a good question. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of a cliche answer, but I'll tell you why. I was a huge fan. So I read a lot of fiction. That's what. And you're spot on. I listen to a lot of fiction, I should say. But one of the best nonfiction books that I read recently was actually Steve Jobs' biography. And the thing that I loved about it was the perseverance associated with it.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't tell you, and I freely admit that I couldn't tell you how to be a top producing agent who does, or to run a team that does 500 transactions or 1,000 transactions like we were talking about before the call. But when it comes to business, the thing that I found is it's purely perseverance. If you just don't get up and you keep going, things tend to work.
Yeah.
And so that's one of his stories that like really, really stood out to me in that book. So not real estate specific, but
yeah, no, that's fine. I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, hard work will trump talent every day of the week.
Yeah.
And by the way, man, so everybody, hold on. I'm in terms of I do nonfiction always, and lately I just got a fiction book, The Martian.
Oh yeah, I saw the trailer.
Yeah.
It looks incredible. I've heard the book is really, really good.
Yeah, I think you'd appreciate it, man. It's really technical. It's just, I mean, literally, it's one of those books that you listen to it. I'm listening to it on Audible, but it's literally, I can see the movie. I can see it. This book was so anyhow. So
I'll have to check it out.
Everybody out there, whether you want to go get The Martian or go get Steve Jobs, get a free copy on us. Just use our link, audibletrial.com/superagentslive. Listen, Matt, we're going over, 54. Okay. So here's my last question I ask everybody. Okay. Do you have a personal habit that you feel has contributed to your success, Matt?
That's, for me, it's always about consistency. That's the thing that I try to preach in my life. I try to have the same pattern every day, all day. It's like, I wake up at 6 a.m. every day. I go running. I get ready, I clear my email, you know what I mean? I just have this very consistent pattern. And I feel like it's so important personally, professionally, when you're building anything, particularly building a business, that consistency builds trust with yourself, with everyone around you. They know that they can count on you doing certain things at certain times, and it just becomes foundational. And then everyone gets really comfortable building their lives around you, or building their professional lives around you. So to me, that's the mantra. That's the drumbeat that I run by, is consistency.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
I love it. All right, buddy. Hey, look, here's the deal, man. I always encourage everybody that's listening, if they've gotten anything out of this, to reach out and to say thank you to you. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, Matthew Barba, at Matthew Barba, and on LinkedIn, and yeah, those are my big places. Cool. And email too, Matt at Playster. I read it all the time. I have great conversations with, folks in the industry, customers. So email me anytime.
That is cool, man. And I'll tell you, so you just laid out a little hack for people. So if anybody ever wants to contact a founder, it's almost always it's first name at domain name. So for Matt, it's Matt at Playster.com. All right, buddy. Hey, listen, I'll kick off the thank you train. I appreciate it, man. I know you're a busy guy. You have 65 people, 24, you have almost $100 million company that you're running. Maybe 75. I don't know. So you're busy. Thanks for taking the time out, Matt.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
Anytime. All right, buddy. Let's stay in touch.
Okay. Take care.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
This show is produced by me, Toby Salgado, with help from our research team and production done by Viralcast. If you're building a team and want to make sure you're doing it the most efficient way, reach out to Corcoran Coaching. They coach 83 of the nation's top producing teams. And for our listeners, they'll give you a free business evaluation. Send an email to Bubba at CorcoranCoaching.com and let them know I told you guys to call.